So I was talking to our Maureen the other day, and you will never guess what she overheard when she was having her brows done. Apparently, according to Maureen, Hayley, you know Hayley, Horsecob Hayley, teeth all over the place like they're in a race to get out of her mouth. Yeah, that one. Anyway, according to Maureen, Hayley was saying there's this new podcast. Well, my ears pricked right up because I love a good podcast. Anyway, this one's all about culture, and at first I thought, culture? I can't see that catching on round here. Not in Todmorden. But apparently, it's not all up its own ass, or hoity-toity at all. They talk about what's been going on recently, like what they've been watching and stuff, and there's a quiz that's meant to be a right laugh, mainly because they're both fucking shit at it. And then they normally pick something to talk about in a bit more detail for the second half. Sounds alright, doesn't it? I might give it a listen when I finish reading this week's Take a Break. It's right good. Some silly cow reckons she's got a psychic dog. Oh, and apparently there's some stupid theme tune as well.
Well, I suppose at least the intro was usable this week. That was much better.
Yeah, and it's good to hear that the word is getting out there and
Well,
people hearing about us. So
thank God for gossipy neighbours.
Yeah,
Who knew?
Horsecob Hayley chatting away down the salon.
So we're going to spare you all this week. There's not an interview, and that's not through lack of trying, purely because nobody's returning our emails for some reason.
I can't imagine why. I really don't know.
Something about public image, I think, and they don't want it shafted.
Well,
so what we thought we'd do is dive straight into our fan favourite. We'll just jump into a quiz.
Yeah, okay, I am ready.
It's Dan versus Mark. It's Dan versus Mark. You ready for your quiz?
Quiz me hard.
Oh, quiz in my face. Right, we're doing taglines again.
Got quiz all over the place.
Anyway. Taglines again.
Yes.
A great effort last week from both of us.
It was phenomenal.
I still
Top
have
scores all round.
It reminded me of the first quiz we did, and it was just embarrassing. But at least you were joining me on the embarrassment this time.
Oh God, yeah.
So, would you like the first one?
Okay, yeah, I'll go first. Right. Always bet on dead.
Oh dear. I keep looking at mine when you say yours. and I keep going, but that's not that. That's weird. And that's weird, isn't it? Right. Always bet on dead. I can't ask for a clue on number one.
Well, you could if you wanted.
I'll have a clue, please, but don't give it away.
Where would you place a bet?
You'd place a bet at a casino, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it is casino.
No, it isn't.
No, but I can't remember any casino-based films where there's murder. That's just not in my wheelhouse.
Oh, do you give in?
Yeah.
Army of the Dead.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen it in everything.
You know that one with all the dead zombies and the casinos?
The Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
Oh,
all the dead people in casinos.
Right, yours is going to be really easy this week, I think. That's the problem with it being on Netflix. You don't see the posters out and about.
That's true. That is true, actually, to be fair, yeah.
Anyway, here's your first one for episode 6.
Go on.
The body count continues.
Okay, so this has got to be a sequel. Is it one of the Halloween sequels?
No.
Is it one of the Saw sequels?
No.
Give us a clue.
You're in the right genre.
Friday the 13th?
Maybe. Maybe give it the correct title.
Part 4.
No, it's Friday the 13th, Part 2.
Okay.
Can I have that?
Oh, thank you very much.
Well,
generous.
Yeah, with a bit of nudging.
Okay. All you need is one killer track.
It's something to do with music and murder.
Not necessarily, but it's definitely music.
Killer track. Got American Psycho in my head because he murders. And he's big into his music, isn't he?
Is that your answer?
Only because I don't know what else it could be without a clue, and I don't have 5 clues.
I could give you one clue if you wanted.
Go on.
It's not American Psycho.
Thanks, that's really helpful. One killer track. It's not going to come to me. It's not singing out to me straight away.
Baby Driver.
Great. Absolutely great. Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
How fast do you like it? That's a tagline, by the way, not a personal question mark. I just wanted to throw that out there.
It's not one of the Fast and the Furious films, because I don't think they've got anything like that. God, is it an 80s film?
No.
Okay. Go on, give us a clue.
It's part of a franchise.
Of course.
My clues aren't going to be particularly helpful now because I'm flagging behind.
How fast do you like it? Is it one of the Fast and Furious films?
I can't say. That's giving it away. Either commit or we'll move on.
I pass.
Too Fast, Too Furious.
Oh, so it's not one of the Fast and Furious films then, because that one doesn't count.
I couldn't say it is, because that's just not fair.
It's a piece of shit, that film. Anyway, okay. Sit back, relax, enjoy the fright.
Oh dear. It's a horror film.
Kind of.
Got Fright Night in my head.
No.
Just because there's fright in the title.
Oh, okay.
Sit back, enjoy the fright. Gremlins?
No.
Not a clue.
Snakes on the plane.
Oh, Christ alive. One, I dislike snakes intensely. So, and I have seen it, but I would. That was the tagline.
Okay.
I thought it would have been Sam Jackson's in this film, and he's had it with these mother flipping snakes on his mother flipping plane. Right. Okay. Number 3. Oh Christ. The journey continues.
Oh, is that Lord of the Rings? The Two Towers?
Yes. Come on. Let's have number. Yes. Oh, I'm having flashbacks to the first one we ever did.
Well, don't worry, because I'm not doing that well. Although I'm doing better than you.
Thank you.
Okay, right. It begins.
Oh, is this a trick one? Oh, is it simply It's Chapter 1?
No.
Bollocks.
Do you want to have another go?
I'll have a clue, please.
Well, It Begins would suggest that it's the first part of a multiple part thing.
But it's the what is the it that it's beginning.
Indeed.
I mean,
It's a recent film.
Okay, I got it right that it was the first part because It Chapter 1.
Yeah.
Is
So
one.
you kind of your logic is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's the what is beginning. Now, what I will ask is, did it come after? Sorry. Yes. Is it the first part that came after, like Star Wars Episode 1? So there was already a sequel out there, and it became a prequel.
Oh no! It's
Okay,
not,
so it was done properly, 1, 2, and 3, or whatever.
Not yet. So far, there's only this one.
It's that recent.
Yeah.
It begins. Dune?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have that. Thank you very much.
Yay!
I'm upset you haven't found my 3 out of my 5 have a theme. We'll come to that at the end.
Oh, okay.
Okay, is your number 4?
Mm-hmm.
Don't breathe. Don't look back.
Don't breathe. Don't look back. I know this one, but I need a clue.
Big Universal Pictures action film of the 90s.
Yeah. Don't breathe. Don't look back. Is it part of a franchise?
No.
Okay, it's a disaster movie.
Sort of. Well, yeah.
So something like Universal. But it's not a franchise film, it's a standalone film.
Correct.
What disaster movies did Universal make?
All of them at one point.
Well, is it from the 90s?
Yes.
Go on. No, go on.
You pass?
Yeah.
If I said Bill Paxton.
Twister.
Yeah, Twister.
Do you know, and this is going to sound really pedantic, right? and it's no excuse for not knowing.
Sounds like it, but you go on.
Well, because that was a Universal and Warner Brothers
give over.
co-production.
Okay.
And I think if I remember, in the DVD I had of that was the Warner Brothers DVD, not the Universal DVD. Internationally, it was released by Universal.
Oh, there we go. So it's fine.
In the States, it was Warner Brothers.
So I'll take that.
I had the US DVD, so that's why I've always thought of it as a Warner Brothers film. But cool, okay, good one. That was a good one. Is it the last one for me now?
Indeedy do.
Prepare for Glory.
Is it a comedy?
No.
Oh shit. Scrap off Balls of Fury, Blades of Glory. Is it? Can I have the genre, please?
I'd say primarily action. Comic book film as well, actually.
Interesting.
Thinking about it. Comic book adaptation, action, slight historical, but wouldn't say accurate.
I was thinking V for Vendetta.
Okay, no, not that.
I thought I had it then. I'm going to have to pass. My brain's just not there, as you can tell.
300.
No. I should have asked for director. This is Sparta.
But you didn't.
No, I didn't. I know. Regrets. Go on then. Here's your last one.
Go on.
So I should have led with this one. You might get this. Why did I choose this one? Okay. The Star Wars saga continues.
Empire Strikes Back.
Bugger. Yeah. Handed you that one. Could you tell my theme?
Go through them again. What were yours
Body
again?
count continues. The journey continues.
Oh God, right.
The Star Wars saga continues. I was like, I could get 5 with continues, but some of them were just so obvious.
That's
like
almost as bad as including Die Hard every week.
I know. I'm glad you got that out of your system. So I think I had 0 in that.
No, you got June.
Oh, I got okay. So I got 1. That's not bad.
June, yeah.
I can give you here a solid 3 out of 5.
Oh, 3. Okay, fair enough.
Give you Friday the 13th, Lord of the Rings, 2 Towers, and Empire Strikes Back.
Fantastic. Okay.
Good effort.
Okay. So that's the quiz done. We do need, of course, to fit in our other regular feature, which is has Dan seen Die Hard yet? So I'm bracing myself here for shock revelations. Dan, have you seen Die Hard yet?
Well, it's actually really funny you should say that because I turned on Disney Plus yesterday to watch Hawkeye.
Oh, yes.
And there's a big banner saying the Die Hard collection on Disney Plus.
Yeah?
Mark, ask me again.
Have you seen Die Hard yet?
No.
Shit.
Oh, I wanted to build that up so much and I feel it worked. You sounded so excited. No, I still haven't.
Right,
there we are.
We'll move on. I think we're going to skip our kind of weekly catch-up and roundup of things we've been listening to and watching, because I don't think there's much either of us have been doing.
No.
What with work and other commitments, it's all been a bit hectic this week. So we'll move straight into...
It's time for topic or topics of the week. This week, this is perfect for Mark. We're going to talk about the good old days. I'm just saying you've got far more good old days to talk about than myself. But let's talk nostalgia.
It's not what it used to be.
It isn't. No, and it gets harder with time. It's the thing about history. But the thing is, we talk about a lot what's coming up and what's new and exciting. But let's dip into the past. So jump into our TARDIS, our DeLorean, and let's go back in time.
Let's. Okay. So I think, I think there's kind of a bit of a common thread through some of the things we've spoken about before. So recently, for example, we were talking about fandom and the kind of toxic side of that and the kind of really anal and picky side that some fans have. And there's a bit of a link there, I think, to some of them who are very much nostalgic So while you're talking about the new Doctor Who, for example, or the new Ghostbusters, a lot of the negativity towards these new interpretations comes from a nostalgia. You grew up during a certain era, and you had those kind of films and TV shows that you grew up with, and that's kind of what your benchmark is, I
Yeah,
guess,
I understand that.
for
Yeah.
culture and entertainment going forwards.
So
And so,
let's take
go
Doctor
on.
Who as an example.
Yeah,
So my era of Doctor Who started with Christopher Eccleston.
right.
So what's that? 2005.
Something like that, wasn't it? Yeah, mid 2000s. Yeah.
And I'm not entirely certain when it stopped prior to that.
It was late 80s. I think the last one was around 88, 89.
And that would have been
That was, well, actually, there was
because there's the film Doctor, which is McGann.
Yeah, so there was the series which ended, I think, around 89, and that was Sylvester McCoy.
Okay, I was completely wrong. That's cool.
So then a couple of years after that, there was the one-off TV movie, which was Sylvester McCoy becoming Paul McGann.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously that didn't do whatever they hoped it would do. And then it was off the air for a good, well, I guess 15 years or so before it was brought back with Christopher Eccleston.
And Russell T Davies. So
Yes. Yeah.
just wanted to throw that in there because he's coming back after Jodie Whittaker's departure end of next year, I think.
I think so. Yeah,
I think she's got a special now, and then she's got a Christmas special or a New Year special 22.
They've got the New Year special coming up now. I think there's a special in the spring, and then there's a feature-length 60th anniversary special later in the year, and that'll be the end of her and Chris Chibnall as he's the current showrunner.
Okay. I can't believe it's been 10 years since the 50th anniversary, to be quite honest with you.
No, right.
That's flown. Really.
It really has.
Anyway,
yeah.
tangenting, we're very good at that. So
We are.
my era of Doctor Who was Eccleston, and even though it hasn't really stopped since 2005 or so, I still feel that level of nostalgia up until Matt Smith. So he was the third new Doctor, wasn't he?
Yes, yeah.
I think after that, when Capaldi took over, I struggled with it. Now, I don't know if that's just because I thought I was a bit older, this wasn't really for me anymore. But the Eccleston years and the David Tennant years was just phenomenal in terms of what the show did.
Yeah.
And I just stopped. It sounds like I just stopped caring for it, you know. But I imagine this is going to go a bit before my time, and you're going to go back even further back.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I historically, when I was younger, I was never what I would call a massive Doctor Who fan. Right, I was obviously aware of it, and I would watch it. I think I kind of just caught the tail end of Tom Baker's Doctor. I do remember seeing the episode where he regenerated into the Peter Davison version, and I kind of dipped in and out of that. Colin Baker dipped in and out of that. But I'd say that the times when I did really watch it was the Sylvester McCoy version. So I guess in that sense, he's quote unquote my Doctor. I really enjoyed the TV movie in terms of what Paul McGann did in his performance. But obviously, as an episode or Doctor Who film, it wasn't that good. And I think that's where it's often been let down. That the performances have far outgunned the scripts.
Yeah, that's fair to say, because I think it's from a broad opinion that's where Whittaker has fallen flat. She's a fantastic actress.
Yeah.
But I feel that the scripts have not been allowing her really to shine.
And I would say the same with Peter Capaldi as well. He's a fantastic actor.
He's very good.
And he was brilliant as the Doctor. But the scripts, he was just let down by the scripts. And yeah, Jodie Whittaker as well has had the same issue. One of the things I've kind of did really like what the new Doctor or the Russell T Davies version
Saga,
onwards has tried to do is what I love in TV shows are ones that build a mythology or explorer mythology, right? So this where they've come in, like the 50th anniversary edition was obviously
Yeah,
it had Tennant and Smith, and then it introduced John Hurt as this missing war doctor, right? So all of a sudden it expanded this element, this previously unknown version, and then it kind of goes on to explore, the Doctor, and you see the kind of all of the Doctors appear at the same time at the climax and all that kind of thing. And then with the Jodie Whittaker version, they had this, I think they called her the Fugitive Doctor.
Yep.
Which was another female version, which again, it just kind of, I love stuff that kind of builds the world out a little bit more. And yet those kind of things were bits that maybe some of the more traditional fans or fans of the older versions would take against, because they say, well, this contradicts what was said in the 1972 episode 3 of blah blah blah. And it's like, on the one hand I think, get a grip a little bit, because tell me any I don't think there has been a sci-fi or any kind of, maybe some of the soaps, but I don't think there have been many shows that have been running for that long that haven't had some form of contradiction at some point.
No,
because
you're quite right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about time travel. They're going to tie themselves in knots
of course,
if they really want to stay that continuity clear.
Yeah.
But it does keep getting brought back. It is loved the world over. It's a massive following in the US.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's glory days, I'd like to call it. Arguably in the last decade, it was. Even them, those are glory days. But I do think it dipped after Capaldi's time. It dipped.
Yeah.
So yeah, they rebrought it back. They rebooted it. It did well, and then it's dipped since.
I mean, I'm interested to see Russell T Davies, as you say, is coming back. The production is now going to be done by Bad Wolf rather than the BBC. Bad Wolf was set up by people who worked on the first version of the Russell T Davies incarnation. So they are, I think it's Bad Wolf. It's named after one of the story points of his version, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah. So it's clearly a group of people who know the show, who brought it back successfully the first time round, and at the point now where you can argue it needs a bit of a kick up the arse. Certainly, behind the scenes, as I say, casting wise, I think it's always been pretty spot on. But certainly behind the scenes, it needs a bit of a kick. What I think is interesting with Doctor Who now is that there's almost kind of two nostalgia benchmarks, right? There's the original that started in the 60s with William Hartnell, and everyone's got their Doctor that they grew up with. And it's kind of charming for its kind of shonkiness in
the DIY aspect of it.
Kind
Yeah,
of thing,
yeah,
right? So there's the nostalgia that some people have for that. And then there's the nostalgia that some people have for the more recent incarnation.
I'd agree with that, because I'm in that bucket.
Yeah. I have no particular nostalgia for the old version, apart from, as I say, preferring the Sylvester McCoy ones. When I really started watching it was with the Russell T Davies version. And so you've got those two, camps, I guess. And I'm sure a lot of people are in both and like both equally. But I think there's probably, if you ask, if you were to do a survey, I think you'd probably find a fairly definite split between people who are nostalgic for the original and who are nostalgic for the more recent version. And when Russell T Davies was announced that it was coming back, joy in the streets, partying and jumping up and down kind of thing. And I don't think you could say there's many shows that have that a nostalgia for two different, so clearly defined.
No,
eras.
You're quite right. I mean, yeah, it's something that's been running for, well, fun enough, 60 years. But so yeah, I can understand why there is that joy in both camps.
Yeah.
However, with good nostalgia comes bad nostalgia.
Yep.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And I'll bring in the Paul Feig version, but also the third in the saga of the Ghostbusters films that's just come out.
Yeah.
And the reason I put that in there is because, yes, there's going to be some diehard fans of the 1980s classics that are going to hate it.
Yeah.
And you've still not seen that, have you?
No, still not yet.
Okay, so I don't want to give anything away, but I can tell that there's going to be people that don't like it for a certain reason, and I look forward to exploring that, actually, once you have seen it.
Yeah. I think sometimes, you can't do the right thing, because the Paul Feig version in 2016 decided to, other than very kind of remotely, kind of not touch the first two films, right? It was its own thing, separate characters, separate storyline, no continuation to speak of, right? You could go into that film
Having never seen it, yeah.
And you didn't need to see the originals or anything like that. And he got slated, and I've said before on here that I quite like it for what it is. Great cast, it's funny, etc., etc., and that's fine. But he got slated for that because it's like, for various reasons, right?
Which we have covered in a previous episode.
Which we have. Or you go down the route of playing on the nostalgia and using it and having like absolutely unquestioning links to the original. And as much as it got generally great reviews and it's done pretty well at the box office, there is still a group of people who hate it because of what they see as, I don't know, do they see it as cheaply trading on that nostalgia? Do they see it as kind of emotional manipulation or what? But sometimes you'll never win with some things like this.
It's like I said before, that fans and the culture of fans and the community of fans can be the best and worst thing for a franchise. And there's another example that's just come to mind actually when we were talking about this, and it's nostalgic for the fact that it was something that was done yonks ago, but it's come on to be, well, it was number one film ever at one point. That's the Jurassic World saga.
Yeah.
That tugs at nostalgia of it being a sequel, a direct sequel trilogy to the original three films. They definitely made three, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
They did, yes. I tried to forget the third, but the point is they made three.
Third one's better than the second one.
Good job we don't live anywhere near each other. I'll brick your house. But, yes, I don't know. I'm a massive Jurassic Park fan. It was one of the first sort of like grown-up yet still you're okay to watch it as a kid film.
Yeah.
And the thing that sold it to me when I was a kid, that, they were dinosaurs, was the fact that it was practical effects.
Yeah.
And, okay, some of the CG in that still stands up now, but you look at the Jurassic World trilogy, soon-to-be trilogy, and they've oversaturated it with CG. The third one, Jurassic World Dominion, might put that to rest.
Yeah.
But the first one and the second one, I remember being quite CG heavy, even though they introduced animatronics.
Yeah, I think that when you've got stuff like that, where you're trying to it's been a few years since the last film, you're not remaking it, you're not rebooting it, but you're trying to continue the story. There's a certain amount of box ticking that has to go on, and I think that was really, it's evident in Jurassic World. You've got obviously they're back on the original island. There's sequences where they go back to the original Jurassic Park buildings that have been abandoned and all that kind of thing, and the old jeeps and whatnot are there. Which on the one hand is like, it's like building that world out, isn't it? It's like, it's all
remember
still
this,
there.
remember that.
It's all been abandoned. But
it's
yeah, you're right.
It's a Peter Kay skit, isn't it? Remember the 80s, garlic bread. We've talked about that in the past, but it's the same sort of thing.
Yeah, but it kind of sets, there's enough there that if you've literally just landed on this planet and never seen the originals, there's enough there to explain what's happened. And
you can pick it up and still enjoy yourself.
But obviously, if you're a fan, you go, oh, it's that building from there, and it's the Jeep from there, and all that kind of thing. And I think sometimes that it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think it's, to a degree, it's necessary. I think one of the films where it was really obvious was The Force Awakens.
Okay.
Right? Because it had been, obviously they wanted to carry on from the story from Return of the Jedi. But then in between that, you'd had the prequel trilogy, which is pretty awful, all told, right?
Oh my God.
But it is. They want to bring people back in So it's like, okay, what do we need to do? We need, okay, Chewbacca, tick. Millennium Falcon, tick. Han Solo, tick. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I get it. I get it.
They're bringing these kind of, bad guy who wears black, tick.
Has an affiliation for masks.
Exactly, right? Cute little robot makes bleeps and bloops, tick. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, whereas and again, we've spoken briefly about this, what I really like about The Last Jedi is it doesn't try to do that.
It is
not
its
a
own
box
film,
ticker.
isn't it? Like it's
It is absolutely its own film. It's got, okay, we've set everything up. Here are our characters, the new characters and the old. Now let's go and actually tell a new story.
and then completely forget about it when the trilogy comes to a close.
Well, that's J.J. Abrams coming in and replacing Colin Trevorrow and really not having a fucking clue how to close it because he never planned to close it originally.
Not that you're bitter or anything, but I get it. I get it.
I think the Rise of Skywalker is a terrible film.
I don't know how I can work with you anymore.
There are good things in it, right? And I'll tell you what, I think one of my favourite characters in the whole saga is Palpatine.
Well, yeah, of course
Right.
he is.
And when the kind of news was there that he was coming back, I was like, this could be spectacular. And I was like, this could be really good. If they can figure out a good, logical way.
There's the problem.
There's the problem.
And I agree with you. It's a clone.
Somehow, and it's literally explained in one line by Oscar Isaac, and it's somehow Palpatine has returned.
Great. Moving on.
And that's it. That is it. And it's taken them like the 2 or whatever years since then to gradually, via like the Star Wars website and other books and spin-offs, fill in
the gap. Yeah, sure.
The gap of like how he actually returned. Oh, it turns out Snoke was a failed clone or whatever it might be. And it's like that's shit storytelling on behalf of J.J. Abrams. And I used to love J.J. Abrams.
We're tangenting again, Mark. I'm going to bring you back to something
sorry. Let's reel it back. But anyway, right.
So I was going to try and bring it back to after your ramble about why Rise of Skywalker is the best one in the trilogy. I got away with that. Fair enough. Was practical effects, so I brought up Jurassic World. Now, to me, I get a good sense of nostalgia looking at older films that rely heavily on practical effects and get it right. And what always amazes me is back in those days, they put a lot of effort into it, and it couldn't have been cheap to make that decision. Because, you know, an effects-driven film's always going to up a budget. And one example, well, the examples that come to mind of recent years is obviously John Carpenter's The Thing, which wouldn't have been possible without special effects and practical effects, I should say. And then the remake in the year that I can't remember, but
it's like 2010,
something like that. Now, that was a film that was shot on set with practical effects and then drawn over with bad CG. Now, I know why filmmakers choose to use CG, because it's probably cheaper. But when it's done wrong, it ruined the film.
Yeah, and you know, like you say, it's not even as if the practical effects were bad. If you look at the behind the scenes footage,
I'm chuffed you've seen that, because this point was reliant on you actually seeing that, because a colleague told me about it years ago.
Yeah. No, if you look at the behind-the-scenes footage on the... well, it's not a remake, is it? It's a prequel.
I didn't want to tell people that.
But anyway. But the point still stands. It's a valid point. You look at the effects on the behind-the-scenes footage, and they are on a par with the stuff in the original. And when you look at who did them, it was Amalgamated Dynamics Incorporated who did the effects on the Thing's prequel. That's Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff, who are from... They came out of the Stan Winston studio. They then set up their own effects company, ADI. They worked on Aliens under Stan Winston. They did Alien 3 as their own company, Alien versus Predator. They've done a ton of stuff. They know what they're doing, right? And those practical effects are spot on. And yeah, And I don't even think it was the director's choice, because the director was talking, well, certainly early on when the production was announced, he was saying, no, we're going to stick to practical effects. And I think his story slightly changed over time. But I remember, you can see the footage on YouTube. There's footage of Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff at the premiere on the red carpet talking about, how hard they'd worked on the effects and etc. And I remember watching that footage and thinking, you're being interviewed here on the red carpet, and I fucking guarantee you've not seen the final version of the
Because
film.
you're about to be incredibly disappointed.
Yeah, because if you had, you would not be talking about your
No.
effects in such a passionate
It must be quite
way.
insulting
And
to them as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine how it must have felt to go. And it's not that the CGI effects are bad in that film. There's a few that are actually quite effective in the kind of body horror sense of the original film. But it's a cliche, but it's true. It's this: you can't beat a real physical object in front of a camera. You can just tell. I mean, maybe if they did it now, in the 10 years since, it would be better and it would look more like the practical effects. But I just can't imagine that what was filmed on set in front of the camera wasn't good enough.
Quite right.
For the final
Quite
version
right.
of the film, especially when it was those guys doing it with their budget that they must have had to do it.
Well, that then segues into reboots and remakes not being as good as the originals, regardless if that's a continuation of the story or completely rebooting and starting again. We've had good examples of that with Halloween 2018, reboot / sequel of the original.
Yeah. And again, part of that is fueled by a nostalgia thing, isn't it?
Of course it is.
When it's done well, normally everyone's happy, right? When it's done badly, everyone agrees it's bad. When it does something maybe different, you tend to get a bit more of a split, right? So, like, speaking of one, for example, Man of Steel, okay? I think that's probably my favourite Superman film. I think Henry Cavill's great. I'm a fan of Zack Snyder in general. But I think it does that film and Batman v Superman, I think, do something to kind of explore in a quote-unquote realistic way what it would mean if a super-powered being was on this planet, and who could, in Batman v Superman, he could wipe us all out with a single thought.
With a sneeze.
Who's there to police that? How do we govern that kind of power? And I thought those two films particularly did a really good job of exploring that. Now, to some, they were ponderous and too up their own arse, and etc., etc. But that's a reboot that I felt tried to come at the character or characters with a bit of a new angle, maybe something that hadn't really been done before. Because the Christopher Reeve Superman films, faithful to the comics and obviously, good, great films, most of them, two of them. But they weren't what you would necessarily call deep and looking into the character.
Cut and paste of what was worked previously. Yeah, okay.
And then you look at something like Batman, which gets rebooted every few years. But again, it's a bit like the Doctor, isn't it? Everyone's got their Batman. But that kind of...
Interesting side point to that.
Yeah.
My Batman isn't even my generation's Batman. I just think he was the best. So my generation's Batman's the one... What's his name? This is good.
You like him that much?
He's Nolan's. What's his name?
Oh Christ. Christian Bale.
He couldn't even do it. Yeah, Christopher Bale. Christian Bale.
Christopher Biggins.
Oh, could you imagine Biggins as Batman? Hilarious. Anyway.
All right, let's start that one again.
So my Batman isn't even my generation's Batman. My generation's Batman is Christian Bale. But I come at it from a logical point of view, and I still think that Keaton was the best Batman.
I would agree.
But there's a but there. I can feel it.
No, I think he still is. But I think Ben Affleck is a very, very close second for... And again, this is more to do with how the reboots have handled the character. For that version of Batman Ben Affleck is great. Ben Affleck would not have worked in a Tim Burton movie,
Of
right?
course not. It's too camp.
And Mike, exactly right. But I think for his version, for the version of Batman that Zack Snyder wanted, I think Ben Affleck's perfect. I think he's physically
Bob on.
imposing. He's older. You know what I mean?
I'm quite looking forward to seeing Bat-Pat. I really am.
I am as well, actually, and I was kind of a bit meh at first, but seeing the trailers,
I'm sold on
and
it so far.
Absolutely.
But no,
yeah,
that's an interesting point, because again, there's going to be people who grew up with the Tim Burton films and those originals, and then obviously the really dark trilogy that Nolan did, which is still phenomenal because it was just groundbreaking for what it was.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then it's been rebooted since, not on a standalone, but yeah, there's always a Batman every couple of years.
Yeah, and what will be interesting, maybe, not wishing to generalise, but what you might get this with the Robert Pattinson version is those kids, I guess, again, not to generalise, but mainly girls who maybe grew up with the Twilight films.
Would go and see it out of
ordinarily.
Bat-Pat. Yeah, no, I think that's fair to
ordinarily
say.
wouldn't care about a Batman film. This could be their Batman because of that link, and they'll see it when they might never have bothered seeing.
Well, didn't that happen with the Zac Efron film about Ted Bundy? I'm sure I read something about that.
Can you imagine the discipline?
Oh, High School Musical's taken a bit of a dark turn.
Yeah, Jesus. But yeah,
I'm sure it did.
You're probably right. But I think it's so you get these kind of a different filmmaker will come in and kind of put their own stamp on it, and they'll have an idea of how they want to handle the character. And obviously, Snyder took his inspiration from The Dark Knight Returns, the Frank Miller book, which obviously has a kind of a bit of a bust up between Superman and Batman in that. And Matt Reeves is here taking his cues from Batman Year One. Early stages Batman, just recently started out on his crusade. And I think a character like that works because, it's been going for now, 80 years, something like that?
I don't know, I can't remember, Matt.
And, well, I remember when it launched in 1939.
Well, I were a boy.
And I were a lad. Throughout the decades, there have been those different iterations. You had the Frank Miller version in the 80s and 90s, and you had, what I mean. So there's different eras in terms of the comic book for filmmakers to dip into when they want to do the screen version, and then you get kind of other remakes where you kind of just wonder, like, why bother? So you get stuff like, a few years ago, Gus Van Sant did a remake of Psycho.
Was that with Vince Vaughn?
Vince Vaughn,
yes,
and Hesh.
Yes.
Right. And it's like, right, I do not have a problem with reboots and remakes and sequels and all that, right? I will judge the film on just whether it's a good film or not. Okay? That's my first thing. Did I have fun? Whether it's necessary or not, whether it links to the original or whatever, did I enjoy it? That's my first thing. But with this one, I was literally, because it was a shot-for-shot remake. There was literally nothing different about it apart from the cast and the fact it was in colour. And it's like, honestly, why bother? Remake a film. I think the criteria for remaking or rebooting a film or a franchise should either be, one, because the original was just not a good film, but it had something in it that is worth looking at again.
Re-exploring,
Re-exploring, right? There was something there that could be done better. Or you want to do something differently. You've got and we'll come on to an example of that one. But you want to do something there's nothing wrong with the original. The original could be a classic, but you want to do something a bit different with it. But the Psycho one, the shot-for-shot remake, it was just like, literally, why bother? It was just like, for the sake of it. I don't know. But that one irritated me, to be honest.
So I'll tell you something that irritates me, because it's not just that films get shot-for-shot remake.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind quickly was the American IT Crowd, and a bit of
Yes.
continuity there was Richard Ayoade reprised his role as Moss. The
Yes.
guy from Community played Roy.
Was that Joel McHale?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I don't know who played Jen because I didn't watch it, because apparently it was
No.
rubbish, but it was the same
Yeah.
script. Now, another TV show which was massively popular over here, tried to take it to America, Peep Show, with Johnny Galecki. Can't remember the other person, but it dropped what made UK Peep Show so clever, which was the point of view camera.
Yeah. Why? What? Yeah.
But that's not the one that annoys me the most. The one that irks me the most, because I think if you went to school in the UK, you went through most of the phases that these four lads sadly went through, and that's the In-Betweeners.
Yes.
Now, I remember getting really excited thinking the In-Betweeners US was coming out, thinking, oh, it's going to be like American Pie, it's going to be that kind of horribly dirty, I suppose, but funny, slapstick, teen comedy.
Yeah.
No, British script with American accents, and even like the swearing doesn't translate. Right?
No,
like in the British one, the swearing's such a big part because as Brits we swear quite a lot. In America, I think it's quite dirty to swear.
It is, whereas Britain, it's almost like poetry.
If you want to call it that, Mark, be my guest.
There is a poetic element to the English or the British accent swearing.
Calling someone a wanker.
Yeah.
But the American one, I just remember it being exactly the same, even to the degree of when they went to a theme park. They went to Universal Studios Orlando, which I was like, oh, this is great. But even that couldn't save it, and there's just certain things like trying to get underage alcohol in this country. You do it up until you're 18. In America, it's 21. So even if they're 18, there's still a number of years off getting served legally. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's the one that really got my dander right up.
Yeah.
And it got cancelled somehow.
Well, the last thing we want is Dan's dander up, isn't it?
Nobody needs it. I don't need it. Trust me. Nobody wants
But
it.
I think I'll take your In-Betweeners, but I think in response I'll give you one example. I think where they did it just right, and that was Battlestar Galactica.
Righto. Okay. Talk to me.
Well, the original series from the 70s was done in response essentially to Star Wars, right? Star Wars was a big hit, and I think it was NBC wanted a kind of TV rip-off of Star Wars. Okay, so special effect, and they did use like some of the Star Wars special effects people on there, you know. So it wasn't a cheap show, but it was obviously by modern standards a bit clunky and so on. And what they did was they took the central. It was that thing like I mentioned earlier on. There's something at the core of it worth exploring further. And they took that central concept of these lost, displaced tribes of people and these machines that they created eventually turning against them and trying to find a new home and all that kind of thing. And turned it into this brilliantly written and performed kind of political drama almost in space, where you had the kind of the president and her kind of trying to do all the like the political aspects and that kind of West Wingy House of Cards kind of side of things. And you had this, you know, it was a military fleet, so it was all kind of the admirals in charge and the military side of things. And I just thought it just worked. The world building was fantastic, and the storyline generally kept going, and it more or less stuck the landing, you know.
It's nice to hear that there are examples of well-loved franchises giving a toss. Now,
yeah, oh, absolutely.
I don't know if Battlestar was done by teams or people involved with the original, but I have found if people that were involved or have a real strong connection to the original source material, for want of a better expression, it does better. You know, the Halloween, the new Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
it's going to hit better because there's that emotional connection that if they bugger it up, that's the legacy completely buried, coffined, bang, done.
I guess then you've got this other kind of situation where studios will keep trying to keep franchises going or reboot them. So either successfully or otherwise. So a recent example from the last couple of years is the Crow um, remake or reboot, which the rights holders have been trying to get off the ground for quite some time. Most recently, that was with Corin Hardy as the director and Jason Momoa as the lead character, and they were very, very close to beginning filming. I think they were, a couple of months, if not just a few weeks away. And in fact, just recently, some test footage has been released of Jason Momoa in the makeup and so on that was done during pre-production, and he looks fantastic. He actually really does look the part, but that kind of fell apart at the last minute because of the old creative differences between on from Corin Hardy and Momoa's side
Right.
versus the studio.
Oh,
But
right, okay.
but studios do seem determined to try and keep some of these properties going, just kind of purely to keep hold of the rights. If you look at stuff like the Hellraiser series, and that changed hands a couple of times before it eventually ended up at Dimension, who were a Miramax sub label for
Right.
horror movies at Miramax, and they kept the series going and were kind of picking scripts that they had in their vaults, so to speak, that had nothing whatsoever to do with Hellraiser. They weren't Hellraiser scripts, but they'd pick some murder thriller scripts and
And just
shoehorn
throw Pinhead into
Pinhead
it and
and
the
yeah,
Cenobites into it.
just so they
Right.
could make a film every couple of years and hang on to the rights because they could spend 1 million, churn out a cheap film, make a profit on direct to video, and then in another couple of years do the same thing again.
Because haven't they just announced a Hellraiser TV show?
Yeah, so I don't know whether that's well, because obviously Miramax themselves were kind of sold off, and various rights were distributed off to various other companies after the whole Weinstein scandal. So whether that's still with Dimension stroke Miramax or whether it's now through someone else, there's a film being made, an actual reboot this time, which apparently Clive Barker is quite heavily involved in.
Well, that would be okay, because that comes back
Yeah,
to our point earlier about if the original creatives are going to be invested in it, then they don't want
yeah.
to balls it up.
Oh, absolutely, and hopefully the filmmakers themselves, if they've know that Clive Barker's looking over their shoulder, they'll do their very best. So yeah, there is also, as you say, a Hellraiser TV show as well. I don't think the two are related in any way. I think they're completely separate creative teams, stories, and so on. But uh, David Gordon Green, who's doing the new Halloween films, he's directing the pilot and a few of the other episodes.
And isn't he also doing The Exorcist?
He is.
So
He's doing
again,
the new Exorcist trilogy.
let's
Yeah.
just it's just adding to the list of reboots and sequels. But
Mm.
again, lightning can strike several times in the same place, and he's
Yeah.
had a very successful reboot career, I want to call it, with Halloween and whatnot. So
Hmm.
as long as he does it again for the other two fantastic franchises, then
Yeah, no, and in fact, looking at some details on the Hellraiser TV show, the writers on that are Mark Verheiden, who was involved in the Battlestar Galactica reboot,
topical, topical,
as well as Daredevil, and
fantastic.
also Michael Dougherty, who worked on X Men and Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Any particular X-Men there? Because that could have changed the comment I was going to make.
Oh, X Men United, which I think is X Men 2, isn't
It
it?
is X-Men 2. Okay, because
Yeah.
if you'd said Dark Phoenix, I was going to say, well, you can't have all good people involved with a project,
You
can you?
can't. You can't. But you've got a good creative team there.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell you,
Hopefully doing a good job.
yeah. I tell you, a studio that bugs me with this kind of reboot to keep hold of it
Mm,
is
mm.
Disney.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm obviously, like most people who are semi into films, are big fans of Disney. Of course, the Disney fandom, again, we didn't really talk about it in that episode, but can be the most toxic wasteland of people ever. But Disney have they've got films dating back, well, nearly 100 years.
Yeah.
And they're all their Disney classics are starting to get remade as live action.
Yep.
And I've seen some of them. Some of them I've decided not to, just because I don't like the animated version. But I gave Aladdin a go the other month.
Oh, well.
I enjoyed it. It was good. Yeah, oh well. It amazes me it's Guy Ritchie, but that is a proper live action film. But
that seems a really odd fit,
doesn't
Guy
it? And the
Ritchie
fact he
doing
did Sherlock Holmes. Anyway, I'm going off Shadows. Oh, that's the sequel. Off tangent. But like, you look at The Lion King, the remake of The Lion King, live action of The Lion King. It's not. It's animated. It's still animated. It's the
That's
same
true.
film.
That is true. That is true.
It still bugs me. But Disney have a habit of doing that, so nobody, can you imagine Universal picking up Snow White or something silly like that?
Yeah.
It would never, ever happen. But
No.
there's a point to why they'd remake them, and they are remaking them as live actions.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one asked for it.
No, but they've got this huge catalogue of titles, and yeah, they've got a built-in audience. I think that's some of the things here with the reboots and remakes and things. I think ultimately, and again, it ties into this nostalgia, doesn't it? Ultimately, studios know that there's a built-in audience, that a film title has a built-in audience who will remember the original, who grew up with the original. And if we come back and say, okay, we're rebooting Ghostbusters, Hellraiser, Superman, whatever it might be, as much as a certain area of fandom or whatever may kind of throw a hissy fit or boycott it or complain, most of the general public who aren't emotionally invested in things will go, okay, there's a new Superman film, or there's a new whatever film, there's a new Disney film, let's go see it. And the studios know that, and ultimately they're in it to make money, aren't they? They're there to make a profit, and they're profiting from the nostalgia of that kind of built-in cultural history of those films. The kind of half the marketing's done for them. It's like if they turn around and say, like they did, we're making a quote-unquote live-action Lion King. That's it. Oh, Lion King, brilliant.
Oh,
okay.
I remember that. Yeah, grew up with that.
Exactly, and it's like half the job's done.
I tell you one sort of reboot, remake, if you like, that is going to be coming in soon, and it's through Disney, but Marvel is obviously a studio's rights reverts back or gets bought out.
Yeah.
And Marvel Studios still only exists because a lot of its rights were sold off to other studios and kept the Marvel comic sort of thing afloat.
Yes.
I'm not wrong in saying that. Fact check me.
Absolutely.
But Marvel Studios, the part of Disney, now owns Fox.
Yep.
Therefore owns X-Men, Fantastic Four, all that sort of goodness. And Fantastic Four's coming back, and mutants are going to come back. Let's face it, they are. Of course they are.
Yeah.
But is it a reboot? Is it? Well, yeah, I guess it is, isn't it? But it's again to just enrich that world that the Marvel Studios have built over the last 10 years. It's not a remake as such, because they're not going to make the same film. Everyone's going to have the same origin story. Of course they will. It's in the comics.
Yeah. But interestingly, if you look at, just to go back to what I was talking about just a few minutes ago, where sometimes these films are made purely to keep hold of the rights. If you look at the history of the Fantastic Four films, there is, of course, the infamous, rarely seen Roger Corman version that was filmed, completed, but by all accounts was never intended to be released. It was made purely so that Constantine Film, who owned the rights, could keep hold of the rights because the rights were about to lapse. And if they didn't get a film made quickly, they would lose the rights. So they went to Roger Corman, low budget filmmaker extraordinaire, and basically went into a co-production with him to get the film made, so they could hold on to the rights while they looked for a bigger deal with a bigger studio, which then was obviously eventually Fox. The only stipulation was the film had to be made. There was nothing about it ever being released.
That's an interesting point. I love a loophole.
Yeah, so there's an example of literally a film being made purely to hang on to the rights so that a bigger budget film and more profit could be made later on. And it worked. Because
Here's one, though.
Go on.
So, this might just me being a bit naive.
Mm.
But for example, let's say Culture Trumpet Studios owned the Fantastic Four films, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the Fantastic Four rights for film.
Yeah.
It was about to run out, say, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Could I travel 200 miles to you and us go, hello, I'm Reed Richards, and I'm the Thing. And we've made a film in 2 minutes. Like, what constitutes as the film? That's something, it's probably not for now, but it's just something I'm thinking of.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good point. It's a good point. I mean, what constituted for the Fantastic Four that Corman made was something like, I think it was $1 million budget.
I'd have done it for free.
Well, yeah, some pretty ropey special effects. Actors who had no idea that the film they were appearing in was never going to get released, and were rightly kind of upset after the fact about that.
Yeah, that would annoy a lot of people, I assume.
You know, I mean, it was. I think in terms of Corman Productions, it was a pretty adventurous, you know, quote unquote big budget deal. And obviously, you can understand why Corman went for it, because he's getting to make a Marvel superhero movie. So you can understand why they did it. But I would imagine that, you know, any contract would have certain stipulations. You know, it has to be feature length. It has to, you know, be produced by this date, etc., etc. But as I say, yeah, the film was produced, but no one ever said it had to be released anywhere. Although you can kind of get it on kind of bootleg, you know, if you kind of know where to find such things. There's an interesting documentary, I think it was on Amazon Prime, and I think it was called Doomed, and it's a feature-length documentary about the whole making of that version of the film. And what happened. I will, if it's still there, I will stick a link in the description of the episode.
Did you realise that Roger Corman directed The Little Shop of Horrors?
He did indeed.
Great movie.
And that was made because he'd finished filming the previous film ahead of schedule. They had the sets already built, and so he wanted to come up with something very quickly that they could film in a few days before the sets had to be taken down.
I feel like a right knob now. It's not The Little Shop of Horrors that is the awesome film. It's a different one.
Oh, the original, yeah.
Yeah, not the Hollywood one.
No.
Ah, Christ.
But that shows you how effective Corman is, in that he would reuse sets.
No, I'd say it shows how effective and how stupid the public are. Because if I fell for it then looking at the website, imagine that on a vast scale.
Well, potentially, yeah, potentially.
Ah, Christ. Nostalgia, it ain't what it used to be. No, that's
it's
wrong.
Not, is it?
No, yes, maybe. I don't know. Do we love it? Do we not? I don't know. What are your thoughts? Should they remake films?
Personally, I mean, yeah. Personally, I don't have an issue with remakes and reboots. In the way
I don't on a whole.
You know, I think. Look, if you've got something new to say around the same subject, by all means, have a go and say it. If the original film was rubbish and you think you can do a better job, by all means, have a go. If the original's a classic and you want to kind of keep that going, you know, ultimately, the originals are not going anywhere, right? Just because someone makes a new Ghostbusters film,
it's not going to take away that the original was, you know, it's not going to slam the original.
No one's going to come into your house and steal your copies of the first films.
I don't know.
So I think people, I understand why people get a bit funny about remakes and so on, but
It's
at the
not doing
same,
any harm, really, is it?
no, not really. If you're not interested, don't watch it. Watch the originals
Be
and
happy.
be happy. That's fine. Exactly.
Well, that about wraps this episode. Episode 5.
Episode 6.
Episode 6.
That was smooth.
I thought. I mean, I think that was flawless, to be quite honest.
That was great.
Any feedback, we're going to keep plugging this bit. We have an email. There is Twitter. Just shout at us if you don't like it. We'll bin it. But yeah, still going. It's all good. Got good ideas coming up for some future episodes. So something that we were talking about today, maybe turn a bit more towards music for an episode. That's kind of my background. So that could be quite fun. So
yeah, a bit more culture after all. We have kind of focused mainly on films.
I'm sick of films.
So I think we'll start to widen out a little bit. Misses.
I didn't even think. But there's some good movies coming out soon. So maybe we could spend a whole episode just dissecting Far From Home. No, what's it called? Dissecting No Way Home.
Yeah.
And maybe in January there'll be an episode. Why was The Matrix rebooted? You never know.
A follow up, a sequel episode. How meta is that?
Oh, Christ alive. But yeah, thanks for listening. Next time.
Yeah. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.